This is a homage beat.
Piety, we think we so good, and we look down upon other people. And so I say, in the caricature of the self-righteous religious nut and the depraved atheist, the religious person is calling out the atheist for their sin, while the atheist laughs at the hypocrisy of the religious person.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are all acknowledging the flaws in others without addressing our own. The religious person is right to address the sin of the atheist, and the atheist is right to address the sin of the religious person. However, in addressing sin, it only acknowledges a problem without giving a solution. Both the self-righteous person and the atheist are in the same boat, the same immoral boat, I said the mentioning of the healthy tree and the diseased tree is not meant to judge others to see which one you are. It's not for me to say, I'm the good tree and you're the bad tree. I say the point is that everyone is the diseased tree because everyone bears bad fruit. The religious person and the atheist both bear bad fruit. Therefore, both are spiritually diseased. And Scripture says what? Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Though one may appear to bear good fruits, the presence of bad fruit means those fruits are not truly good. Scripture addresses this saying, we have all become like one who is unclean, and all our righteous deeds are like a polluted garment. Now, the English translation of this doesn't do it justice because in Hebrew, the polluted garment is actually a reference to the feminine rag. And I say this is extremely harsh language, but it's in regards to our perceived righteousness. One may give to charity, be friendly, kind, caring, peaceable, respectful, and honest, but no one is like this all the time. But my question to you is like, and we talked about this before, it's like we read the Bible with kid glasses.
Yeah.
But if you actually read the Bible, it says some harsh things. And this is one of the things in Isaiah 64:6, where it says, your righteous deeds are like a polluted garment. And again, that's the PG version. You know, the real version is saying it's a feminine rag.
Yeah.
Saying all the good things that you perceive that you do, they ain't nothing but a feminine rag. So I guess twofold questions. What are your thoughts on our righteous works being a polluted rag? And then what are your thoughts on Scripture using such harsh language?
When you hear that, I mean, most of the time, like you said, like you do look at it with a kid's glasses, like you're like, okay, the Bible's supposed to just make me just feel good all the time. It's supposed to just make me feel really, really good every time I read it. But sometimes it's supposed to cut. And like that's what it is. I mean, the word is like a sword. Like so, it's supposed to cut like that. So I mean, it's harsh, but when you look at it, it goes back to what you're saying. Like it goes back and that makes that caricature example that you had really good because it shows like almost two extremes, and then it's like when you're in the middle, like it just shows that you have a problem. Like we are dirty, we are messed up, we are like so. I mean, using the it's interesting the way they use like the imagery, but like it goes back to what was going on back then. Like back then, like if you come at somebody and you be like, yo, it's like a polluted garment, like a feminine rag, like that's gonna offend some people in the crowd. But like I think they meant to offend people because it's like, yo, you need to find out that what you're doing is messed up, and we need to get this fixed because you can't fix it yourself.
Yeah.
Only God can fix it. So I think like the language, I mean, like when you look at it, you actually go into it like you did, like with because go into it and really find out what these things mean. Like it can hurt. Like that'd be like somebody just coming up to you and being like, "Oh, I see that you just gave like half your check to charity, but that's like a tampon. Like it's just like that dirty tampon. It don't matter. Like but in your mind, you're kind of like, whoa, that's messed up."
And before we go any further, I just want to clarify, like when the prophet Isaiah was using it, he's not saying don't do good works. So don't come away from listening to that saying don't do good work. The problem is when we do good works and we think it earns us some kind of righteousness. That it's like, oh, I'm better than this person. And in the example that you gave, someone who wrote a check, and they saying, oh, I wrote a check for X amount. This person didn't. And that's where it's the polluted garment, where it's like you thinking your good works merit you some sort of righteousness. They don't merit you anything. That doesn't mean don't do them, but don't look to your righteous works or your works to make you righteous. And that was the point that they were making. So I don't want people to take away, don't do anything good. But don't point to it as
I'm guilty of that, like sitting there like thinking that something I did for the month or something I did was great. Like we should do these things.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, we're just trying to learn how to do it in the right context.
Exactly.
Like trying to get it in the proper way. Cause it's like always just thinking like, okay, I should do this, but how do I do it?
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to gauge it and learn in that way.
No, and that's real. But I definitely wanted to make that clarification. I don't want somebody to come away saying, well, like you said, I gave, and is that a bad thing? No, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But some people do those things. Like I think even in the gospel, it's like, you know, and I might be butchering this, like those who like just announce that they're fasting or something like that, so that they can look righteous. Where it's like, if you're gonna fast, just do it in private, you know, because God sees it.
Watch it first.
Exactly. So that's what So I just wanted to clarify that. But that scripture's saying, you know, your righteous deeds are like a polluted garment, and so just putting it in those contexts, I say this. I say, therefore, we are all the diseased tree, who bear no good fruit. As a result, we need to be cut down and thrown into the fire. Common sense says if a tree is diseased, there is no point in saving it. Likewise, if we are pictured as the diseased tree, is there any saving us? And I say, ironically, many challenge God in what's known as a theodicy. Essentially, a theodicy is a scholarly way of asking, if God is so good, why does he allow evil? This is an excellent question, but I said it has a terrifying answer. Now, have you in just your walk with God, or even someone approaching you when you're even talking about God or the gospel or religion, has like fired at you, you know, man, if God is so good, you know, why does he allow evil? And if that has or hasn't happened, like, have you even given much thought on how to answer that question?
Honestly, that's never actually happened to me. No one's came up to me and be like, well, God is so good, why does he allow evil?
Yeah.
Honestly, I like it. I think you've given an example of it before. And that's how I would probably go to it. I've like thought and had a conversation with my wife in the same way. I think you've given an example of it, but you could probably word it a little bit better. Because like me personally, since I've never been approached with that, I've never really looked into like and had a deep answer to be like, well, this is why.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I get you. And so, and I think it's an important one, and one that we don't want to wrestle with because it's tough. It's a tough question, especially like when the natural disasters come or if someone experiences death. A lot of times we may not know how to respond to those questions, and I don't ever want to seem like I've got it all together or anything like that. But I say the issue with this question is one fails to acknowledge what evil is. I say evil is usually over there somewhere. Evil is never what stares back at us in the mirror. I say earthquakes are evil. Cancer is evil, and bugs are evil. I say everything but man is evil. However, if someone does acknowledge evil in men, it's typically the murderer, the rapist, or the terrorist. The evil person is never the liar, it's never the thief, it's never the adulterer, never the coveter, never the idolater. However, in viewing evil this way, we can judge ourselves as good people. We tend to justify wrong actions as excusable and inexcusable. Murder, rape are generally inexcusable, while lying and stealing are generally excusable. Lying and stealing is bad, but it's not as bad as murder. Though this is true, does being a liar and a thief make one a good person? And I say this is the problem with not having a universal and absolute standard of right and wrong. It results in people judging others and themselves according to preferences and opinions. However, in asking why a good God allows evil, one indirectly acknowledges a right and wrong that even what God must be held accountable to. And again, this is the thing that like bugs me out. It's like in denying God and then accusing him of wrongdoing, again, you still acknowledge what a universal standard that even God must hold himself to. And I say this is blasphemous for two reasons. I say in challenging God, we foolishly think we are the standard that God is accountable to. It's like we calling God out, and it's like as if we are that righteous standard that he's supposed to be held to. I say if God does not act how we want him to act, We have the right to call him to the carpet. When disaster strikes, we mockingly ask God why he didn't prevent it, as if God is to act and do as we please. Though we may not know the answer why God allows certain things, we dare not hold them in contempt. And I say the second reason this is blasphemous is in holding God in contempt, we fail to realize he is not accountable to us, but we to him. If we are accountable to him, we are to do what he wills and he desires. However, we foolishly think God is to do what we will and desire. This is not God, but what? Santa Claus or a genie. I say this is terrifying because we are at his mercy. And that's what I was getting back to earlier, where it's like, so I can hold God accountable to a standard that I don't even hold myself to. So I can find fault in God, but not myself. It's like, God, why do you do all these things? And you holding God to the standard of what? Perfection. That he himself must be perfect, but we make excuse for ourselves not to be perfect. Well, it's like, no, you yourself are to be perfect
and when you,
as well. Go ahead.
And when you ask that, like, you make those statements, they're cool, like, they're good. Like, do you think that the basis for that, where that starts, is it our sin? Where it starts at, or what's the, like, where do you think that kind of comes from? Like, I saw that you was able to had those two statements, but where does that really stem from as an issue for?
Man, again, I didn't do it too much in this one, but like going back to Genesis and other ones where the serpent tempts Adam and Eve and says, if you eat from this tree, you will be like God.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal.
Yeah.
Because again, God is the only one who can set the standard of right and wrong. If I don't believe in God, I become a standard unto myself. Yeah. I say this else places. I say we don't deny God. We want to be him. We want to sit on his throne.
Yeah.
We want to be the one who can say this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah.
That's what we crave. We crave God's attributes. We don't deny him. We want to be him.
That's right.
We want to be the ones who can say, I can do what I want. I can do what I please. Only God can say, I do what I want. I do what I please. And just understanding that relationship between the creator and creation. No one wants to think of themselves as subservient to what their creator. Because if that's the case, then I'm at his mercy. But so many times we flip it, and when asking that question, we're like, why does God allow evil? Number one, we haven't acknowledged what evil is. And number two, we think God is to do our bidding. And this is why I thought it was like, I've had this concept in my head because I think I spoke to it before, like hopefully God willing, I'm throwing this out into the universe. Pastor Jerome at Vision Church, he may allow me to preach on justification. This is kind of like the overarching theme of justification, and I'll probably be pulling bits and pieces from this concept into what I'll be talking about. But in answering that question because like there's nothing new under the sun. The whole book of Romans is kind of dedicated to answering this question: how is God a righteous God? And the answer is God is a righteous God. But I heard someone say this before in answering that question of the theodicy. He said this. He said, we want a God who is omnipotent and not sovereign. He said, if God is omnipotent and not sovereign, we wield his power. But if God is omnipotent and sovereign, we're at his mercy. Yeah. The question is not why does God allow bad things to happen. The question is how can God know what I did, said, and thought last night and not kill me? That's the question. That's the real question. It's like, we want God to do right by evil, but you evil. Yeah. So if by God doing right, that means he ought to kill you. That's right. Should be glad for his mercy and you live. And it's like we don't think about it in that way, but yet we call God to the carpet. Now, I'm not trying to say I know every reason why natural disasters happen. I don't know. I'm not saying that. I think we can all attribute it back to the fall, back to sin, or whatever the case is. I know people don't necessarily like that answer, but I can't question why that is. Or even another one where it's like a child dying. Like, how do we explain that? And it's like, is God not good? He allowed my child to die. That's a tough situation. I can't necessarily speak on it, but all I can say is God is a just God, and he will do what is just. And it's like, those are the tough moments where our faith is actually challenged. Yeah. But instead of running away from God, I think it should cause us to run to him, because if there's no God, then there's absolutely no hope.
That's right.
And so just trying to flesh that out. And then I go from there, I say, Scripture teaches